Today we're going to talk about character inferences. Our essential question is, how do you make inferences about characters? Let's go ahead and get started. First, what is an inference? Well, an inference is when you infer something. That's when you learn something based off of evidence. When we're looking at a story, when we see evidence in a story, actions, events, stuff that characters do, we can make inferences based off of that. If we figure something out about a character or about a situation or about a conflict based off of the events that happen or what we read, we are making inferences. So anytime we make a judgment or a decision or draw a conclusion, those are all just different ways of saying we're making an inference. We are inferring something from the text and gaining information based off of that evidence. Now, one thing we're going to do a lot of when we're making inferences, one of the things we're going to work on is called characterization. Characterization is how the author tells us about a character. It's how we learn about characters and stories. Now, there are two main types of characterization. First, there's direct characterization. The author just tells you the information. This is something that happens a lot more in stories for younger people. So a lot of times children's stories will do this. Well, they'll just go through and they will tell you directly about a person or a character. Like if you're reading a book about the movie Frozen that was written for a younger audience, it might just tell you Hans is cruel. It might just come out and use those words and actually tell you about the character. So when that happens, it's called direct characterization. The author is being direct about giving you information about a character. Usually, though, that's not the case. Normally, we're going to see what's called indirect characterization. Indirect characterization, the author shows you things that help you learn about the character. This can be done through their words, through their actions. Things like that are going to give us a lot more information about a character, usually, than just a word or a phrase that the author tells us. For example, Hans locks Anna away behind a closed door to die. You know, when you think about that action that Hans took near the end of the movie, that's really messed up. He knows how fragile Anna's thoughts are, about how upset she gets about the idea of being alone, about how upset she is about being closed behind doors and being locked away from people that she loves. She mocks the fact that he doesn't actually love her, then locks her behind a door to die alone, which is probably the most terrifying thing in the world to her. Hans is cruel. The author never said, or the creators of the movie never said, Hans is cruel. They showed it through his actions. And that is what indirect characterization is. And when we're going through stories, we're often going to make inferences about characters based off of what they do and what they say. And every time we do that, that is an indirect characterization, and that's an inference that we make. So that's a lot of what we're going to be practicing as we're going through and we're doing our reading. So, what does this look like when we go ahead and we do our writing? Well, if we had the question, what can be inferred from Han's actions? We can go through and put in our topic sentence. In the movie Frozen, created by Disney, Hans can be inferred to be cruel through his treatment of Anna. There we go. We have an inference we're able to make. We're able to infer that Hans was cruel. We have to support that, though, with evidence, because we used evidence to make that inference. For example, Hans locks Anna away behind a closed door to die. That's our evidence. That is the action that we saw in the movie that showed us that Hans was cruel. Then we have our analysis, which is our explanation of that. That's what we color red. Even though he knew her fears of isolation, he despicably taunted her loneliness and left her alone. So remember that analysis sentence is where we're going to put in our own thoughts and our own conclusions and why we believe that evidence shows our topic sensitivity. That's where we're going to put those nifty little adjectives like despicably, where we really show our feelings about the characters. We do that in our analysis sentences, not in the evidence and not really in the topic sentence usually. We're going to be putting a lot of those adjectives there. Now, we did put the adjective about Hans being cruel in our topic sentence, but that's because that was our answer to the question. And we always, always, always focus on answering the question. So we can make inferences about characters based off of their actions, based off of what they say. And when we figure out stuff about characters, it's called characterization. Like it's the author's characterization that revealed this information to us.